The fourth challenge took place inside the command center of Admiral Vextar's flagship. Jake Morrison found himself standing on the bridge of a starship more advanced than anything humanity had ever built, but he felt more confident than afraid. They had won 2 challenges and tied the third despite the hegemony's attempt to hide the truth about the Crick's homeworld. This test will measure leadership capability, Admiral Vextar announced. Both teams will command a simulated deep space mission with crew members from multiple species. Success requires maintaining efficiency while managing the diverse needs of different cultures. The simulation placed each team in command of a space station far from any inhabited system. The crew included members from 6 different species, each with their own biological needs, social structures, and cultural practices. The hegemony approach followed their standard hierarchy. The alien team leader assigned each species to specific roles based on their perceived strengths and established strict protocols for interaction between different groups. Efficiency was the highest priority, and deviation from established procedures was not tolerated. Jake watched his team take a completely different approach. Captain Morrison himself took the role of station commander, while Dr. Amy Foster focused on understanding the biological and psychological needs of each crew member. Ryan Clark worked to establish communication systems that allowed all species to contribute ideas regardless of their position in the command structure. They are wasting time with unnecessary social interaction, the Mantis tactical officer observed. As the human simulation showed crew members from different species working together on projects outside their assigned duties, maybe, Jake replied, but look at their productivity levels. The hegemony simulation ran like a perfect machine for the first several weeks. Every species knew their role and performed it without question. Reports were filed on time, resources were allocated efficiently, and regulations were followed exactly, but problems began to emerge as the simulation progressed. One species became increasingly hostile toward another over what seemed like minor protocol disputes. Productivity started to decline as crew members focused more on avoiding mistakes than on innovation. When an unexpected crisis required creative problem-solving, the rigid command structure prevented effective response. The human approach looked chaotic by comparison. Crew members from different species mixed freely and worked on projects together. Some procedures were modified to accommodate cultural differences, and decision-making involved input from multiple levels of the hierarchy. Their system lacks proper discipline, Admiral Vextar commented. But their people are happy, Dr. Amy Foster replied. And when the crisis hit, they adapted immediately because everyone understood the mission and felt responsible for success. The final scores showed the human approach achieving higher productivity, creativity, and crew satisfaction despite lower scores for regulatory compliance. 4 challenges completed, Admiral Vextar announced. The humans have won 2 contests, and we have won 1 with 1 tie. The final challenge will determine the ultimate victor. That was when the alarms began sounding throughout the hegemony fleet. Jake saw Admiral Vextar's yellow eyes widen as reports flooded in from his communications officers. Unknown vessels approaching the system, came an urgent voice. Configuration and energy signatures do not match any known hegemony design. Through the flagship's viewports, Jake could see new ships emerging from hyperspace. They were smaller than the hegemony warships, but moved with a fluid grace that suggested advanced technology. This is unexpected but fortuitous, Admiral Vextar declared. The final challenge will be real first contact with an unknown species. Whichever team establishes successful relations wins the contest. Jake felt his stomach tighten. This was no longer a simulation but actual contact with aliens who might be peaceful traders or aggressive invaders. The unknown ships transmitted a message in mathematical sequences that Ryan Clark quickly identified as a peaceful greeting. Jake authorized a response while the hegemony team prepared their standard first contact protocol. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human colony ship New Horizon. Jake broadcast. We greet you in friendship and welcome you to this system. The reply came back in accented but understandable English. This is Trademaster Kell of the Wanderer Confederation. We thank you for your welcome, stranger. We were not aware that humans had spread to this region. you know of humanity. We have heard stories from travelers who escaped hegemony space. Tales of a young species that values freedom over order. We did not expect to find you here in the heart of their territory. Admiral Vextar interrupted the conversation. Unknown vessels, you are in space controlled by the hegemony. Identify yourselves and prepare to be boarded. Ah, came Trade Master Kell's voice with what sounded like amusement. The hegemony speaks. We wondered when you would make your demands. This system belongs to us. This system belongs to itself, Trade Master. As do all systems. We are simply visitors passing through. Jake realized this was humanity's chance to demonstrate a different approach to first contact. Instead of demands and threats, he offered information and assistance. Trade Master Kell, we are new to this region and would welcome the chance to learn about the local politics and trade routes. Perhaps we could arrange a peaceful meeting. An excellent proposal, Captain Morrison. We would be honored to share knowledge with fellow travelers. The next few hours changed everything. The Wanderer ships contained refugees from dozens of different species, all fleeing hegemony expansion. They carried news from across the galaxy, including reports of growing unrest in many hegemony systems. Your challenges have been transmitted throughout our network, Trade Master Kell explained during a private communication with Jake. Word is spreading that humans found a way to defeat hegemony arrogance without violence, but Admiral Vextar had heard enough. This contact is unauthorized and threatens hegemony security. Unknown vessels will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. No, came a voice from the hegemony fleet itself. Zeke Moore, the Crix translator, had taken control of a communication channel. We will not destroy peaceful visitors to protect your lives. Translator, you will be silent. I will not be silent anymore. None of us will. Jake watched in amazement as ships throughout the hegemony fleet began breaking formation. The crew members from conquered species were refusing orders for the first time in centuries. The humans have shown us another way, Zeke Moore broadcast on all frequencies. They proved that cooperation works better than domination, that protecting life matters more than following regulations, that different species can work together as equals. Admiral Vextar's flagship found itself alone as ship after ship declared independence from hegemony control. The revolution spread through the fleet as species that had served as slaves for hundreds of years suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. This ends now, Admiral Vextar declared, charging weapon systems on his remaining ships. All rebels will be destroyed, but Captain Morrison stepped forward with an offer that surprised everyone, including himself. Admiral, you have lost your fleet and your empire, but you have not lost your life. We offer you the same choice you gave us. Submit to a new way of doing things where all species are equal, or face the consequences. What consequences? Human Jake gestured to the ships around them, now controlled by their former slaves and the Wanderer. Vessels standing ready to defend the newly free peoples. The consequence of being alone in a galaxy that no longer fears you, Admiral? Vextar looked around at the fleet he had commanded for so many years, now turned against everything the hegemony represented. For a long moment, Jake thought the alien leader might choose to fight to the end instead. Admiral Vextar slowly powered down his weapons. What do you propose, human? We propose that you learn what we learned. That ruling through fear only works until someone offers hope. That different species working together are stronger than any empire built on slavery. Months later, Jake Morrison stood in the gardens of New Terra, watching children from a dozen different species play together under alien stars. The city they had built was not just a human colony, but the capital of something new. The Free Species Alliance grew stronger every day as more worlds broke away from the hegemony to join a confederation based on cooperation instead of conquest. Admiral Vextar had chosen exile over execution, but not before asking Jake one final question. Human, you said you wanted only to live. Was this what you meant? Jake had looked out at the construction sites where humans and aliens worked side by side, building something neither could have created alone. No, Admiral. We wanted to live, but we learned that real living means helping others live freely too. You wanted to rule us, but we just wanted to live. The difference is that when you rule people, you make them smaller, but when you help them live freely, you make everyone bigger, including yourself. The hegemony still existed in distant parts of the galaxy, but its power was broken. Every day brought news of new species declaring independence and requesting membership in the Alliance. In her workshop, Lisa Grant worked with engineers from 6 different worlds, developing technologies that none of their species could have imagined. Alone, Dr. Sam Rodriguez led teams that were healing damaged worlds, including the Crix homeworld that would soon bloom again under its restored skies. Admiral Vexstar stood before both teams as the morning sun climbed higher over the valley. His yellow eyes showed no emotion as he announced the results of the first challenge. The human shelter proved more effective than anticipated, he said in a flat voice. It survived the storm with no damage and required no external power source. The humans win the first contest. Jake Morrison felt relief wash over him but tried not to show it. They had won 1 challenge but needed to win 2 more against opponents who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. The second challenge will test tactical thinking, Admiral Vexstar continued. You will each command a simulated defense of a civilian population against enemy attack. Success is measured by how many civilians survive and how quickly the threat is eliminated. Kate Phillips stepped forward. This was her area of expertise, and Jake felt more confident with her leading this challenge. Behind her stood Tony Blake and several other former military personnel from the New Horizon. The hegemony team was led by a tall insectoid creature with multiple arms and compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Jake had learned from Zikmor that this species, called the Mantis, were considered the best tactical minds in the hegemony. The simulation will take place in virtual reality, Admiral Vexstar explained. Both teams will command the same resources and face identical threats, but you cannot see each other's decisions until the exercise is complete. Jake watched as both teams entered separate simulation chambers. Large screens had been set up so observers could watch both scenarios play out at the same time. The simulated battlefield showed a large city with 1 million civilian inhabitants. Enemy forces approached from 3 directions with superior numbers and advanced weapons. Each team commanded defensive forces, including ground troops, aircraft, and orbital support. The hegemony approach became clear immediately. The Mantis commander positioned all military assets to protect key strategic points like communication centers, weapons depots, and government buildings. Civilian areas received minimal protection. They are willing to sacrifice civilian lives to protect military capabilities. Dr. Sam Rodriguez observed. Kate Phillips took a completely different approach. She scattered her forces throughout the civilian areas, using the population centers as shields. While setting up evacuation routes toward the city's outskirts, she is protecting people instead of infrastructure, Jake said, but that leaves the military installations vulnerable, Tony Blake pointed out. As the simulated battle began, the differences became more obvious. The hegemony forces fought a traditional campaign, trading territory for time, while falling back to their strongest defensive positions. They destroyed several civilian districts to deny them to the enemy and used orbital bombardment without regard for non-combatants. Gates' strategy looked chaotic at first. Her forces seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, giving ground constantly. But Jake began to see the pattern as civilian evacuation convoys moved toward safety under the protection of mobile defensive units. She is not trying to hold territory, he realized. She is trying to save lives. The hegemony simulation ended first. The Mantis commander had successfully defended the city's core, including all military assets and government facilities. However, the civilian casualty count was enormous, with over 600,000 deaths. Gates' simulation continued for several more hours. Her forces had given up most of the city but managed to evacuate nearly 800,000 civilians to safety beyond the battle zone. When the enemy finally claimed the empty urban center, they found no military assets to capture and no government to surrender. Final results, Admiral Vexstar announced. Hegemony forces preserved strategic assets and maintained command structure. Human forces achieved higher civilian survival rates but lost territorial control. Which approach wins? Jake asked. The alien admiral seemed uncomfortable with the question. Both achieved their objectives within acceptable parameters, that means. Kate won, Lisa Grant said quietly. They cannot admit it, but protecting civilians is more important than protecting buildings. The third challenge surprised everyone. Instead of another test of engineering or tactics, Admiral Vextar led both teams to a different part of the valley where the hegemony had constructed a detailed simulation of a dying world. This scenario is based on an actual planet within our territory, the Admiral explained. Environmental collapse threatens all life within 50 years. Each team will propose a solution. Dr. Sam Rodriguez took the lead for humanity, studying the simulated world with instruments borrowed from the ship. The problem was complex, involving atmospheric contamination, soil depletion, and collapsing food chains. It looks like industrial pollution combined with climate change, Sam told his team. But the damage is so extensive that normal terraforming would take centuries. The hegemony team worked efficiently, gathering resources from their databases and implementing standard procedures. Their solution was practical and direct. Evacuate the valuable population, relocate them to other worlds, and strip mine the planet for useful materials before abandoning it. Completely standard hegemony protocol, Admiral Vextar explained. Maximize resource recovery while minimizing loss of productive population. Sam Rodriguez presented humanity's alternative approach. Instead of abandoning the world, they proposed a comprehensive restoration program using biological solutions combined with atmospheric processing and soil rehabilitation. It would take longer, Sam admitted, but within 100 years this world could be restored to full productivity and support an even larger population than before. Inefficient, the Mantis commander declared. Why spend resources fixing a damaged world when healthy worlds are available? Because this world is someone's home. Sam replied. That was when Jake learned something that changed everything. During the presentation, Dr. Sam Rodriguez had been scanning the simulation data and discovered something the hegemony team had missed. Admiral Vextar, Sam said carefully, the biological signatures in this simulation match the genetic markers of the Crick species. Everyone turned to look at Zeekmer, who had been standing quietly with the other translators. The reptilian being's scales had turned a darker color, and he seemed to be shaking. Is this your homeworld, Zeekmer? Jake asked gently. I do not know, Zeekmer replied in a broken voice. The hegemony taught us that our original world was destroyed by a cosmic accident 300 years ago. We were refugees who needed their protection. Admiral Vextar looked uncomfortable for the first time since Jake had met him. The details of historical events are not relevant to this challenge. They are relevant to me, Zeekmer said, stepping forward. Is my people's world still alive? The silence stretched until one of the hegemony technical staff answered quietly. Environmental collapse was induced to facilitate population transfer and resource extraction, standard procedure for integration of new species. Jake felt sick as he understood what this meant. The hegemony had not rescued the Crix people. They had destroyed their world to force them into slavery, then told them it was for their own good. The human solution would actually work, Zeekmer said in wonder. My world could be healed. Your world belongs to the hegemony now, Admiral Vextar declared. This discussion is inappropriate, but the damage was done. Jake could see doubt and anger spreading through the alien observers. For the first time in 300 years, the Crix people knew the truth about their history, and other species were beginning to ask questions about their own past. Jake looked at Admiral Vextar and saw something new in those yellow eyes. It was not anger or contempt, but something much more dangerous to a regime built on lies. It was fear. The transport beam deposited Jake Morrison and his team on the surface of the planet they hoped would become their new home. The air was clean and sweet with the smell of growing things. Strange trees with silver leaves grew along the edges of a wide valley where the hegemony had chosen to hold their contests. Admiral Vextar waited for them beside a large metal structure that had been assembled overnight. The alien was taller than any human, with gray skin and yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the morning light. Behind him stood other aliens of different species, all wearing the same dark uniforms with hegemony symbols. Welcome to your testing ground, humans, Admiral Vextar said. His voice sounded even colder in person than it had over the communications. Are you prepared to prove your worthiness? We are ready, Jake replied, looking at his team. Lisa Grant carried a bag of tools and scanning equipment. Marcus Wright and Jennifer Cole had materials and supplies. Kate Phillips wore her old military uniform and looked completely calm. Sam Rodriguez kept taking readings with his instruments. Even while they talked, "The first challenge is simple," Admiral Vextar announced. "Build a shelter that can protect 10 people from the storms that come to this valley every few days. You have only materials that can be found within 1 kilometer of this spot. You have 6 hours." Jake looked around the valley and saw rocky ground, scattered boulders, and the strange silver-leaf trees. In the distance, dark clouds were already gathering on the horizon. "What kind of storms?" Lisa asked. "You will discover that when they arrive," said the hegemony. Team leader, a reptilian being with scales that shifted color as he moved the hegemony. Team immediately began unloading equipment from their transport. Jake watched them set up what looked like a portable construction system with energy tools that could cut through rock like soft clay. Within minutes, they were building a large, dome-shaped structure using metallic panels that fitted together perfectly. "They are fast." Marcus Wright observed. "But look at what they are building," Lisa said. "Everything comes from their machines." "They are not using anything from this world." Jake gathered his team in a circle. "What do we know about the storms on this planet?" Dr. Sam Rodriguez checked his readings. "The atmospheric data shows very high winds and electrical activity, but also extreme pressure changes that could crush a normal building." "The trees," Nancy Davis said suddenly. She was the geologist who had joined the team at the last minute. "Look at how they grow." Everyone turned to examine the strange silver trees more carefully. Instead of growing straight up like earth trees, these ones had twisted trunks and branches that seem to spiral around each other. "They are adapted to survive the storms," Sam realized. "The spiral shape lets the wind flow around them instead of breaking them. And look at the root systems," Nancy added, pointing to exposed roots near one fallen tree. "They go deep but also spread out in a web pattern to hold the soil together." Lisa Grant smiled for the first time that day. "I think I know what we need to build." Instead of fighting the environment like the hegemony team, the humans decided to work with it. They found a spot where several large boulders formed a natural windbreak, then began digging into the hillside behind them. The soil was soft enough to work by hand, but firm enough to hold its shape. "We are making a burrow," Marcus Wright said, as he helped move dirt. "Not just a burrow," Lisa corrected. "A system that uses the natural protection of the hill and connects to those root networks to stay stable." While Marcus and Jennifer dug the main chamber, Nancy Davis and Dr. Sam Rodriguez studied the rock formations. They found that the boulders were positioned in a way that would channel wind flow around their shelter instead of directly into it. Kate Phillips worked on the entrance, using her tactical knowledge to design an airlock system that would keep the pressure stable inside even when the storm winds were changing rapidly outside. "How much time left?" Jake asked. 2 hours, Captain, and the storm is getting closer." Jake looked across the valley at the hegemony shelter. Their dome was nearly complete and looked impressive with its smooth metal surface and energy shields glowing around the base. It was clearly built using technology far beyond anything humans possessed. "Their shelter looks strong," Jennifer Cole said. "Maybe too strong," Lisa replied. "Look at how much power it is using just to stay upright. What happens when the storm interferes with their energy supply?" As if in answer to her question, the first gusts of wind began sweeping across the valley. The sky had turned an ugly green color and lightning flickered between the clouds. The hegemony dome began to vibrate as its energy shields worked harder to deflect the wind. The human shelter looked much simpler from the outside, just a low mound built into the hillside with an entrance that curved down into the earth. But inside, Lisa had used principles learned from studying the planet's natural systems. "The chamber will actually get more stable as the pressure outside increases," she explained to Jake. "And we connected to the root network so the trees will help hold everything together." "Final preparations," Admiral Vextar announced over the communication system. "The storm will reach full intensity in 30 minutes. Jake gathered his team inside their shelter as the wind began to howl outside. Through the curved entrance they could see dust and debris flying past. The sound was incredible, like standing inside a waterfall. Energy readings from the hegemony shelter are fluctuating, Ryan Clark reported from his portable communication unit. Their power system is working at maximum capacity. How are we doing? Jake asked. All stable, Captain, Lisa said, checking her instruments. Actually, the root network is distributing the pressure load better than I expected. We could probably handle a storm twice this strong. Outside, the storm reached its full fury. Lightning struck the ground repeatedly, and the wind sounded like the roar of some enormous beast. Through their communication link, they could hear growing concern from the hegemony team. Power levels dropping, came a voice in the alien language. Compensate with backup systems, Admiral Vextar ordered. Backup. Systems already at maximum. Jake looked at his team crowded together in their underground chamber. The walls were holding perfectly, and the curved design was actually channeling the storm's energy around them rather than against them. Contact with hegemony shelter lost, Ryan reported. I think their communication system failed. An hour later, the storm began to weaken. As the winds died down, Jake led his team back to the surface. The valley looked completely different, with new channels carved by the wind and debris scattered everywhere. The hegemony dome was dark and partially collapsed on one side. Smoke rose from several spots where the energy shields had overloaded. The alien team stood around their shelter looking confused and frustrated. Our shelter performed adequately, Admiral Vextar announced, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Yours appears to have survived as well, more than survived, Dr. Sam Rodriguez said quietly to Jake. Look at the area around our entrance. Jake saw what he meant. The storm had actually deposited rich soil around their shelter, and several of the silver trees had extended new roots toward their structure. It is not just surviving, Jake realized. It is becoming part of the ecosystem. Admiral Vextar studied both shelters with his yellow eyes. For the first time since they had met him, Jake thought the alien leader looked uncertain. The first contest is complete, Admiral Vextar announced. We will analyze the results and announce the winner before the second challenge begins. But Jake already knew who had won, and from the expressions on the faces of the other hegemony team members, they knew it too. Jake Morrison stood in front of the main communications console as the final minutes counted down. Around him, the bridge crew waited in silence. 50,000 people were awake now, and every person on the ship knew that the next few minutes would decide if humanity had a future among the stars. Time, Captain, Ryan Clark said softly. Jake took a deep breath and opened the channel to the hegemony fleet. Admiral Vextar, this is Captain Morrison. We are ready to give you our answer. The alien's voice came back immediately, as if he had been waiting by his own communication system. Speak human. Do you submit to hegemony rule, or do you choose destruction? We choose neither, Admiral. There was a pause. Explain. We propose a third option based on an ancient human tradition. We challenge you to prove that the hegemony way is truly superior to ours. You wish to fight us, human. Your small ship against our fleet. That would be brief. Not a battle, Admiral. Something more interesting. A series of tests to see which approach to problems works better. Your methods against ours. Another pause followed by what sounded like conversation in the alien language. Finally, Admiral Vextar returned. What kind of tests? Challenges that test intelligence, creativity, and problem-solving. If your people win the majority, we will submit to hegemony rule willingly. If we win, you grant us the right to settle on this world as free people, and if you refuse to honor your defeat, then you destroy us just as you plan to do anyway. You lose nothing by accepting, and you gain the chance to prove hegemony superiority to your entire fleet. Jake waited while more alien voices discussed his proposal in the background. Lisa Grant caught his eye and nodded. This had been her idea, and she seemed confident it could work very well. Human, Admiral Vextar said finally. Your proposal is unusual, but it amuses me. We will engage in 5 contests. If you win 3, may settle on the world below as free people. If we win 3, you will submit totally to hegemony rule with no further resistance. Agreed. When do we begin? Tomorrow. My ship will transport representatives from both sides to the planet's surface. Prepare your best people, human. You will need them. The channel closed, and Jake felt his knees go weak. They had bought time and a chance, but now they had to win contests against beings whose technology was far beyond their own. Lisa, you and your engineering team need to get ready for whatever they throw at us, Jake said. Kate, I want you to prepare for any kind of tactical simulation. Sam, start thinking about biological or environmental challenges. Over the next several hours, Jake watched his people prepare for contests they could not predict. Lisa Grant worked with Marcus Wright and Jennifer Cole to review every engineering principle they knew. Kate Phillips gathered former military personnel, including Nancy Davis and Karen Bell, to discuss tactics and strategy. Dr. Sam Rodriguez studied everything they had learned about the planet below. Captain Ryan Clark called from the station. The alien translator Zeekmore is trying to contact us again on the private channel. Put him through, human captain, came the tired voice. I wanted to warn you about what you face tomorrow. We appreciate any help you can give us. The hegemony has won these kinds of contests before, though not often. They usually do not bother because most species submit without question. But when they do compete, they follow very specific patterns. What kind of patterns? They believe in overwhelming force and rigid hierarchy. Their solutions are always about using more power and more control. They do not adapt or improvise. Jake thought about this. What weaknesses do they have? They expect problems to fit into categories they already understand. When something truly new happens, they struggle to respond quickly. Zeekmore, can I ask you something personal? Yes. Do you want the hegemony to win tomorrow? The silence stretched so long that Jake thought the connection was lost. Then Zeekmore spoke very quietly. For 300 years my people have served without question. We have forgotten our own songs and stories. Our children know only hegemony history. Tomorrow, if you lose, we will still be slaves, but if you win, if we win, I do not know human. I have never imagined what would happen if someone actually beat them after the call ended. Jake walked through the ship, visiting different groups as they prepared. In the engineering section, Lisa Grant was explaining principles of adaptive design to her team. Remember, she told them, we do not have their advanced materials or power sources, but we understand how to make things work together in ways they might not expect. In the tactical planning room, Kate Phillips was drawing diagrams on a wall screen. The key is not to fight their kind of battle, she said to her group. They have better weapons and more ships, but maybe we can think of victory in ways they do not understand. Dr. Sam Rodriguez was in the laboratory studying soil samples and atmospheric readings from the planet. If they give us any kind of environmental challenge, we need to remember that we are good at adapting to new places, he told his assistants. Humans have lived in every kind of environment on Earth. Jake found Dr. Amy Foster in the medical bay preparing emergency supplies. Are you planning for casualties? He asked. I am planning for stress, exhaustion, and panic, she said. Tomorrow will be hard on everyone, whether we win or lose. As the ship's night cycle began, Jake stood alone on the observation deck, looking down at the planet that might become humanity's new home. The world looked peaceful from orbit, with white clouds swirling over blue oceans and green continents. It was hard to believe that tomorrow would decide if humans would ever walk on that surface as free people. Tony Blake joined him at the window. Nervous, Captain. Terrified, Jake admitted. We are betting everything on contests. We know nothing about against people who have been doing this for 1,000 years. Maybe that is our advantage, how they have been doing the same thing for 1,000 years. We have been learning and changing and growing for our entire history. Maybe tomorrow they find out that experience is not the same thing as wisdom. Jake hoped his friend was right, but as he looked at the alien warships still surrounding them, he wondered if human creativity would be enough against such overwhelming power. Tomorrow they would find out if the hegemony's way of ruling through fear was truly superior to humanity's dream of living free. The conference room felt smaller than usual, with 12 people crowded around the metal table. Jake Morrison sat at the head, looking at the faces of his senior staff. These were the people who would help him decide the fate of every human on the ship. 24 hours left, Tony Blake said as he checked his watch. The aliens have not tried to contact us again. Maybe they are waiting to see what we decide, said Dr. Amy Foster. She looked tired from working double shifts in the medical bay as people started waking up from their long sleep. Has anyone figured out more about these hegemony people? Jake asked. Sam Rodriguez opened his tablet and read from his notes. I have been studying their ships and communication patterns. They use technology that is much more advanced than ours, but it seems old somehow, like it has not changed in a very long time. What do you mean old? Their ships are powerful, but they follow designs that look like they were built hundreds of years ago. No improvements or new ideas, just bigger versions of the same thing. Lisa Grant leaned forward. I noticed the same thing in their energy signatures. Very stable, very reliable, but not creative. Like they found something that worked and never tried to make it better. Ryan Clark had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now he spoke up. I have been listening to radio chatter between their ships. They have translators working on our language, and I think I'm starting to understand some of theirs. What are they saying? Mostly just status reports and position updates, but I heard one interesting thing. They called us a new species and said, we had no guardian race. Guardian race, Jake repeated. I think it means other species that are already part of their empire. Like they expect every intelligent species to already belong to someone. Dr. Amy Foster shook her head. So they think we should already be slaves to someone else. It sounds that way. Jake stood up and walked to the small window that looked out at the stars. The alien ships were still there, surrounding them like metal wolves waiting for prey. We need to know exactly what they want from us, he said. Ryan, can you contact them and ask for more details about their terms? I can try, Captain. An hour later, the bridge crew gathered again as Ryan sent a message to the alien fleet. The response came quickly, and Admiral Vextar's cold voice filled the bridge. You wish to know the terms of your surrender, human. We want to understand what submission to the hegemony means, Jake said. Very simple. Your people will live on the world below and work for the greater good of the Empire. You will grow food, mine metals, and build whatever we require. Your children will be educated in proper hegemony values. Your weapons and advanced technology will be given to us. Any who resist will be removed. Removed to where? Removed from existence. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. And if we agree? To this, what do we get in return? You get to live human. Your species continues to exist under our protection. Many races have found great purpose in serving the hegemony. What happened to the races that refused? There was a pause before Admiral Vextar answered. They are no longer a concern. The communication ended, and Jake looked around at his crew. He could see anger in Tony's eyes and fear in Amy's face. Lisa looked thoughtful, as if she was working on a complex engineering problem, Captain Ryan said. Quietly, while the Admiral was talking, I picked up more chatter from their ships. I think they have a translator aboard one of the vessels. Someone who speaks our language better than their computers do. Can you contact this translator directly? Maybe, but it would have to be on a private channel. If the Admiral finds out, do it. 20 minutes later, a new voice came through the bridge. Speakers, this one sounded tired and said, Human ship, this is Zikmar. I am the translator for Admiral Vextar. I should not be speaking to you directly, but I wanted you to understand what you face. Who are you, Zikmar? I am Crix. My people joined the hegemony 300 years ago. We thought we had no choice, just like you. What is it really like? We work, and we serve, and we are fed. Our children learn hegemony history and forget our own stories. Some of us remember what it was like before, but we do not speak of it. Why are you telling us this? Because in 300 years, no new species has ever asked questions the way you do. Most just accept or fight and die. You're different somehow. Jake thought about this. Zikmar, what happens if a species finds a third choice? What do you mean, something other than submit or die? There was a long silence. No one has ever found a third choice, human. The hegemony is too strong and has too many ships, but what if someone did? I do not know. It has never happened in the 1,000 years since the hegemony began. After Zikmar disconnected, Jake called another meeting. This time he included more people. Don Cooper, who managed the farming systems. Kate Phillips, who had been a military officer on Earth. Peter Johnson, who knew more about human history than anyone else on the ship. "We have 18 hours left," Jake announced. "I want everyone to speak honestly about our choices." Don Cooper spoke first. "Captain, I think we should accept their terms. 50,000 people can live and have children and maybe someday find a way to be free again. Dead people have no future." Kate Phillips shook her head hard. "We did not come all this way to become slaves. Better to fight and die free than live on our knees." "With what weapons?" Don asked. "We have a colony ship, not a warship. We have something they do not expect," said Peter Johnson. Everyone looked at the old historian. "We have human stubbornness and human creativity. Every time in our history when someone tried to enslave us, we found a way to surprise them." Jake listened to more arguments as the hours passed. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to surrender, and some wanted to try running to another star system. But Lisa Grant had been quiet through most of the discussion, and Jake could see her mind working. "Lisa, what are you thinking?" She looked up with a small smile. "I am thinking about what Sam and Ryan discovered. These hegemony people are powerful, but they think in old patterns. They expect us to choose between their two options because that is what everyone else has done. So maybe we give them a choice they have never seen before." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the blue and green planet grow larger on the main screen. After 3 years in space, the sight of their new home made his heart beat faster. Behind him, 50,000 people slept in their pods, waiting for the moment they could finally walk on solid ground. "Again, distance to orbit in 2 hours, Captain," said Lisa Grant from her station at the engineering console. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she checked every system twice. The ship had carried them so far, and now they needed it to work perfectly for just a little longer. "Any signs of life down there, Sam?" Jake asked the man sitting at the science station. Dr. Sam Rodriguez adjusted his glasses and looked at the readings again. "The atmosphere is perfect for us, Captain, and I'm seeing what looks like plant life covering most of the land masses, but no cities or technology that I can detect." Jake nodded and felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. They had traveled so far from Earth because their homeworld was dying. The air was getting thinner each year, and the oceans were rising higher. When the deep space telescopes found this world orbiting a star 40 light-years away, the government had built the New Horizon and filled it with volunteers who wanted to start over. "Bring us into a stable orbit, Lisa," Jake said. "Then we can start waking people up and begin the surveys." Lisa's hands moved over her controls, but suddenly she stopped. Her face went pale as she stared at her screen. "Captain, we have a problem," she said in a quiet voice. "What kind of problem?" "I am reading massive energy signatures coming from behind the planet's moons. Something big is moving out there." Jake felt his stomach drop. "How big?" "Bigger than anything we ever built on Earth, Captain. Much bigger." The main screen flickered and changed to show the space around the planet. At first Jake saw nothing but stars and the 2 small moons. Then shapes began to appear as if they had been hiding in the shadows. Ships that looked like giant spears made of dark metal emerged from behind each moon. They were easily 10 times larger than the New Horizon, and there were 6 of them. "Those are warships," said Tony Blake from the security station. The big man had served in Earth's military before joining the colony mission, and Jake trusted his judgment about weapons. "Are they scanning us?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir, and they are moving to surround us." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had become like family during the long journey from Earth. Lisa Grant, who could fix anything that broke. Sam Rodriguez, who knew more about alien life than anyone alive. Tony Blake, who had kept them all safe during the journey. Ryan Clark at Communications, who could talk to anyone. Dr. Amy Foster, who had saved dozens of lives when the flu spread through the ship. Ryan tried to contact them. Jake said Ryan's fingers danced over his console, but after a few minutes he shook his head. "I am broadcasting on every frequency we know, Captain, but they are not responding." The largest of the alien ships moved closer to the New Horizon. Jake could see gun ports along its hull and knew that one blast from those weapons would turn his ship into floating metal. "Captain," Ryan said suddenly, "I am getting something. Put it on speakers." A voice filled the bridge. It sounded almost human, but with a strange accent that made each word sound sharp and cold. Human vessel, you have entered space controlled by the hegemony. I am Admiral Vexstar commanding this sector. You will prepare to be boarded or you will be destroyed. Jake stepped forward. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the colony ship New Horizon. We come in peace and are looking for a new home. We mean no harm to anyone. Your intentions do not matter, human. You are in our space now and you will follow our rules. Prepare to be boarded. We request permission to land on the planet below. We have 50,000 people who need a new home. There was silence for several long minutes. Jake could hear his own heart beating and the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Finally, the alien voice returned. You humans are interesting. We have heard stories about your species but never met you before. Very well, we will not board your ship yet. Instead, I give you 72 hours to decide your fate. What do you mean? You may submit to hegemony rule and live as our servants on the world below, or you may refuse and be destroyed along with your ship. Those are your only choices, human. Choose wisely. The communication ended with a sharp click. Jake stared at the alien ships on the screen and felt the weight of 50,000 lives on his shoulders. They had come so far to be free, and now they face slavery or death. Captain, what do we do? Lisa asked. Jake looked at each member of his bridge crew. These good people deserved better than this. Everyone sleeping in the pods below deserved better. They had not traveled across the galaxy to become slaves. We call a meeting, Jake said finally. All senior staff in the conference room in 1 hour. We need to figure out what these hegemony people really want, and if there is a third choice they have not thought of. What if there is not? Tony asked Jake. Looked out at the alien warships surrounding them and thought about all the people counting on him to keep them safe and free. Then we make one.